So today I wanted to follow on from a video that I did about blame. I did the video on TikTok, and I think I did it as a reel as well on Facebook. Really just talking about how useless the amount of energy is that we use on blaming. Because blame, it doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't teach us anything, and it certainly doesn't help us move on from anything. So I wanted to dig a bit deeper into that today and talk about that. So where I'm going to go down a rabbit hole about this is how many people are drawn to finding out about their future. You know, we'll go to fortune tellers. That's an old word, isn't it? Fortune tellers, clairvoyants, prophets. We go to get our tarot cards read. We read up or get a reading about astrology, our stars. We have oracle cards. You know, we find out about numerology and our personality. All these sorts of ways that we seek in order to find out what happened to us in some instances and what can happen to us in the future. Now, I have a theory about this, and that the theory is that there's only really 3 reasons that we are drawn to this type of thing. Now, before I go into those 3 reasons, I want to reiterate that this is not about judgment. I myself have tarot cards, have oracle cards. I have studied and worked in the field of color therapy, numerology, astrology, crystal energy, Reiki. I studied all 6 clairs, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, clairalience, clairgustance, and claircognizance. Obviously tarot and oracle, chakras, you know, so much more. I've delved into so much of this type of comfort. And, you know, what was the purpose? For what purpose have I, for so long, you know, I've just turned 50. For so long, I have sought out these types of comforts and answers in my life. So getting back to the 3 reasons, and then I will talk about, you know, personally, I guess, what purpose I came up with for myself. The 3 reasons, the first one is to close the loop. Now, what do I mean by that? So, anxiety, when we feel anxiety, it's actually coming from our mind being focused on what we don't want. And this comes from uncertainty. When we are uncertain about the future, uncertain how an event is going to play out, we can go into a bit of anxiety, a bit of a panic mode, because the truth is we're unable to see into the future. We're unable to know with 100% certainty how something is going to play out. And so we get nervous and start sort of opening up all these tabs of possible outcomes, possible scenarios. And we convince ourselves that, you know, we're just readying ourselves with what could possibly happen. And this creates an open loop in your mind. Your mind goes round and round and round and round, constantly wanting certainty in an uncertain situation. And that certainty is never found because we are unable to, with any certainty, know the future. Right? So that's the first reason. We're looking for certainty in an uncertain situation. And that certainty, if we can get it from someone else, if we can allow ourselves to believe when someone says, oh, look, you can relax about, finding a partner because I see someone whose name begins with B coming into your life very soon, and, they're going to treat you exactly like you deserve. There's a certain comfort in that, isn't it? That we can simply trust that that person has a gift. They're able to see the future. And so I can let go of a little bit of that looping, that worry, that anxiety, because, someone told me that it's all going to be okay. So it allows us a bit of a break, a bit of breathing room. It makes sense to me. I wonder if it does to you. So the second reason is to avoid blame. We spend so much of our time beating ourselves up, don't we? In all honesty, we do. We are our own worst enemy. Look at your self-talk. Think about the way you speak to yourself when you do something, that is a mistake. How quickly do we resort to putting ourselves down? Oh, God, I can't believe I said that. That was so stupid. Immediately we're berating ourselves and putting ourselves down. And some of us have been doing that from very, very young, often because we were not brought up in a supportive environment. We may have been surrounded by people who reiterated those kinds of thoughts out loud to us, had very high expectations. And so we've spent a lot of our time and our mind space blaming ourselves for everything, just living in a constant state of guilt almost, and working so hard to squash it down, so that we can think positive, so that we can move forward, so that we can keep going. We keep squashing down this blame and guilt, and yet the smallest thing can happen, and it's right there in our thoughts, in our self-talk, this blame. So when we research, ourselves in things like astrology, numerology, tarot cards, things like that, it also provides a bit of a breather, because it allows us to, for a moment, have this belief that, no wonder I'm always late. I was built that way. Or no wonder I struggle to stay in relationships. It's because of the astrological sign that I am, is incompatible with X, Y, Z. We start to find these reasons that we can put outside of ourselves, outside of our control. Because when we think that it's within our control, then we hump more blame on ourselves. We have no one else to blame but ourselves. And that is exhausting, and it can be really depressing. So there's a certain level of comfort that comes from being able to excuse some of our behaviors, our quirks, our mistakes, to things that we couldn't help, things that were outside of our control. A good example of this, and no disrespect intended, it is what it is when planets go into retrograde. How many people around you, including perhaps yourself, I know I have been, I have used it as an excuse. That explains why I was so this or that or whatever. Such and such a planet was in retrograde. That makes so much sense. We're able to give ourselves a bit of a pass from beating up on ourselves all the time. It makes sense, right? The third reason is to challenge skepticism. So there will be people that are drawn to all these sorts of modalities simply because they're skeptical and they want to know, how does this work? What's the reason that so many people believe in it? And the wonderful thing is finding people as well who want to challenge their own skepticism. So even though they may be going in with a bit of a preconceived idea that, oh, you know what, I kind of feel it's a bit bullshit. However, I'm going to keep my mind open, because the bottom line is nobody knows for certain, right? We're all just doing the best we can with the resources we have. And so the more resources we can gather, the more information we can gather and test and put into, practice, then we're able to get some data for ourselves. And only by doing that research, applying it in your own life, getting the data, that's the way that we can start to close those loops. We start to provide our own certainty instead of relying on outside people, outside sources, etc., to give us some sense of certainty. Because if you're constantly relying on outside of you to give you certainty, then you will spend your entire life searching for it. How exhausting is that? Whereas if you can learn how to seek and find certainty within yourself, then you are in control, which is ultimately what we seek as well. We back and forth and seesaw over this idea of, are we in control? Do we have free will? Or is it outside of ourselves? Do I have no control? It's an interesting topic to talk about. I don't want to talk about it for too much longer in this episode. As you know, I like to keep them short. So for myself, I said I would circle back. When I asked myself, in studying and researching all these different things and applying them to my life and working in those fields and helping other people with them and, really immersing myself in these things, what was the purpose for me? For me, it was because I didn't understand myself. I had no idea, the reason that I would do the things I do. And I seemed so hell-bent on self-sabotaging so many things. And yet I wanted so much good stuff in my life. I wanted to love. I wanted to be loved. I wanted to enjoy life. I wanted to experience life and have fun and be happy, all those things, And yet when I had an opportunity to have them and experience them, I seemed also hell-bent on destroying it. And I thought, what's the reason I do that? And so it provided a lot of answers, and yet all those answers were outside of me. And so ultimately what I was searching for was a way to stop blaming myself. I wanted to believe that I was not a bad person. And all these different things that I studied, they gave me reasons to attempt to love myself, to see some good in myself. And by seeing good in other people, it was helping me see good within myself. So as you can see, I'm not poo-pooing over any of these things. However, I am of the school that it takes all kinds of things, all kinds of understandings, all kinds of thought processes to be open to all these things, with the sole purpose, or the main purpose, can I say, of understanding yourself, to turning all these things inward and providing them for yourself. Often we learn these skills in an effort to help other people. So do you see, we're still pushing it outside of ourselves to make ourselves feel better. What if we can use all these tools to learn more about ourselves and to grow within ourselves and find these things within ourselves instead of looking outward for them. And that's what, ultimately, that was the purpose for me. That's what I was doing. I was wanting to make sense of the world, make sense of my behaviors. And whilst these things gave me insights, a lot of the time they also simply provided somewhere else to place the blame. And it gave me a break. It wasn't until I actually studied NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, that I was able to remove blame entirely. Realize that it's not about blame. Blame is useless. And I spend so much time attempting to push the blame away from myself because I didn't want to take the blame on myself. When the key was, there is no blame. Get rid of the blame. And then you actually empower yourself to take back control. That's what I did anyway. So I trust this has been interesting, insightful, that you got something out of it. I'd love to know your thoughts. Please get in touch with me if you want to, hear any expansion on anything that I've mentioned today. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time. Have an amazing day.